From the files of Dr. Jeremiah Arkham, Chief of Psychiatry at Blackgate Penitentiary. Inmate 3929. Patient's name, Carl Helfern, better known as Dr. Death. Session 1. So, Carl, how are you feeling today?
Adequate.
Good.
Can I ask you a question, Doctor?
Go ahead.
Why does a prison have a psychologist? This isn't a mental asylum.
Oh, well. Sometimes people commit crimes due to mental illness. If a person committed a crime because of insanity, then they just get locked up in a cage. How can they get better? I was put here to determine whether inmates are mentally sound or not. I am asked to examine criminals who might suffer from mental illness, such as the late Martin Hawkins.
Ah, yes, you're a member of the Arkham family. So, you're here because you think I'm a lunatic?
Well, that's one way to put it. Although, it's not the phrase I prefer. Anyway, I'm gonna ask you some questions. Is that okay with you?
I suppose so.
Excellent. So to start off, what was your childhood like?
It was somewhat standard. I didn't have many friends and mainly kept to myself. I excelled in chemistry, but I also took classes in engineering and biology as well.
And your parents? They treated you well?
Yes, they were good parents. Bit distant sometimes, but they were there when I needed them.
So no bullying or abuse?
Why would bullies want to pick on me? I wasn't noteworthy enough for that. And no abuse. Like I said, fairly standard childhood.
And what about your adulthood? Tell me about that.
Oh, very well. When I graduated high school, I went to Gotham University. I studied there 3 years, graduating 1 year early. I set off with a job at the newly opened Ace chemical plant. I worked there from 1980 to sometime last year. In 1987, my family died in a gas explosion. After that, I used spare resources at work to conduct little experiments on lab rats. These experiments would lead to the experiment which resulted in my current incarceration. Anyway, eventually my experiments were discovered by my superiors, and they deemed them inhumane or some such nonsense. I suppose I was just tired that night, but I attacked my superior. The struggle resulted in some chemicals exploding in my face, which led to my current disfigurement. They ended up laying me off, although they paid me a rather large sum of money, so I wouldn't go public with the story. The scandal of a psychopath working at that company trying to revive the dead wasn't something they wanted. For some reason, after I left, I realized I could use the money they had given me to conduct my experiments on a much grander scale, which led to this conversation.
You experimented on rats. How did you go from that to attempting mass murder? You don't have a single offense before that. Not even your parking ticket.
There are things your fancy files can't tell you, Doctor. Like my first crime back in 1982. Have you ever heard of Judson Pierce?
That gangster who bankrupted Roger Kane, right?
Yes, funny you should mention the Kanes. You see, Roderick's daughter, Martha Kane, and her friend Leslie Tompkins built a clinic in Park Row, which was, at the time, territory that Pierce and Sally Guzzo controlled. Pierce gave Kane money to walk away so he could profit from the clinic. She refused his offer, but she took the money and invested it in the clinic. Pierce was naturally angry, and he wanted to get rid of Tompkins and Kane. So he came to me. He wanted me to release a dangerous chemical in the clinic. He threatened my family, so I complied. While we were getting the stuff ready, a kid from the clinic found us. Pierce's thugs poisoned the kid, but the chemical was slow acting, and it got away from us. He was found by a doctor named Thomas Wayne, who was visiting the clinic to offer them additional funding or something of that nature. The child warned Wayne and everyone in the clinic of our presence, and Wayne gave him the cure for the toxin. Someone called the police, and I ran, while Pierce and his men stayed behind and were arrested. Pierce went to prison, and I'm pretty sure he's still here, but I was more careful. I left no trace of my identity, and Pierce never did say where he who got the chemicals from and who helped him, so I got away scot-free. Interestingly, that was how Martha Kane and Thomas Wayne first met, and they soon began a romance, got married, and had a son.
Very interesting. And how did you feel during the crime? How did it feel knowing that you would have been responsible for the deaths of dozens of people?
At first, I was terrified of the thought, but the closer we actually got to pulling off the scheme, the more indifferent I felt.
And your latest crime? How do you feel knowing that thousands would have died because of you?
I felt a sense of enjoyment, actually. I expected to be disgusted by the act, or at least I expected to not really care. But I found it fun. It was the most fun I'd had in years. Of course, he had to ruin it.
He? To whom are you referring?
Don't play stupid, Arkham. You know who I'm talking about. Let's be honest, it's the whole reason you wanted to talk to me.
Very well, let's get to the point. Batman. Did you expect people to believe in this? Batman?
You people can believe whatever you want. Besides, I'm not the only one who's seen him. There were witnesses that night, and he's been rather active in the past few days, or so I've heard. He stopped other so-called criminals.
Well, criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot. It could be just paranoia and superstition.
And I suppose Johnny Sorrow, the Icicle, and all those other super criminals are common superstitions too? Or what about the Spy Smasher, or the Flash, or the Justice Society? Is a man dressed like a bat punching muggers and bank robbers in the face so unbelievable compared to the King of Tears attempting to eat all of our souls? Trust me, those things happen, and I'm old enough to remember them too. But you asked about Batman. Very well. I was purchasing chemicals from an anonymous source when he showed up. Took out my contacts meant in the shadows. When he made his presence known, I left and returned to Ace Chemicals, which I was using as a hideout. However, I soon found him there. He wanted to know why I wanted the chemicals, so I told him of my plans. He didn't seem too keen on the idea. He told me he was going to stop me, although why anyone would want to stop me, I don't know.
You were gonna murder thousands of people, Carl. You don't see why that's a bad thing?
No, should I? Anyway, I stabbed him, and he was clearly in pain, so it was obvious that he was flesh and blood and not a vampire, or whatever it is that people believe him to be. I then knocked him out, figuring he'd either die from blood loss, or at least be unconscious long enough for me to activate the cloudburst. So after I prepared everything and was on the roof, ready to disperse the gas, he showed up again. He used what appeared to be a sharp blue projectile in the shape of a bat. Sort of looked like a bat-shaped boomerang or something to damage the machine.
Sure he did.
If you want to hear the rest of the story, then cease the commentary. Anyhow, after that, he offered me the chance to come with him, and I quote, consciously or unconsciously, unquote. I attacked him with my knife and got him to the edge of the roof, but he pushed me away, and I hit some loose scaffolding, and I fell towards the street below. I expected that to be it for me. What I believe was a hook and a cable wrapped around my leg and pulled me back up. He had saved me with some kind of grappling hook.
He saved you? Why would he do that?
That's what I asked him. He said that all life mattered to him, and they knocked me out. When I woke up, I was tied to the cloudburst, and the police were there to arrest me. They said they got an anonymous call tipping them off to my plan. Well, Doctor, am I insane? Should I be rotting away in the nut house?
I wouldn't phrase it in such a crude manner, but let me see. You said you didn't understand why anyone would want to stop you, and you felt no remorse or guilt about killing anyone.
That's what I said.
Well, then I'm diagnosing you with psychopathy, antisocial personality disorder, and delusion of grandeur. As for Batman, I'm not sure what to make of that. But for the time being, you're going to be held in solitary confinement.
Solitary? Why?
You being around violent criminals can only make your illness worse. And this place certainly isn't equipped to care for the criminally insane. Oh, and I recommend getting plastic surgery to fix your face. But I doubt they allow that in here. Useless brutes.
And I take it you have a plan to remedy that, Doctor?
If you really want to know, I'm attempting to gain the funding necessary to reopen the Elizabeth Arkham Asylum for the criminally insane.
Well, good luck to you, Doctor.
I'll see you next week, Carl.